Yeah, better learn to show consideration.
Just a brief introduction. Jeff is wrongfully convicted, indicted at 16, got convicted at 17, and you were out at 32, right?
Correct.
Correct. Next to Jeff is Nancy, who is very close to Jeff, serves as a second mom. You take care of Jeff, right?
Yes.
And next to me, we have Linda, who is Jeff's biological mom.
Yes.
Linda, anything you want to say?
I just want to say that when I had Jeffrey, he's my everything.
Okay, good. Last but not least, we have our resident psychopath on the show, Jimmy. The ironic thing is that we have an exoneree at the table and we have an ex-con at the table. You served time, but you deserve to serve time,
Correct.
and Jeff didn't deserve it at all.
That's an important distinction.
Very important distinction.
It is.
You know, Jeff, I was thinking, when you're in prison, basic body duties, you got a manicurist on set that comes in and takes care of your nails? I mean, how do you, because I would imagine they wouldn't give you anything, any kind of metal nail clip or anything like that.
It's an exception to the general rule of not giving inmates metal. They don't provide it to you. You can purchase it off your own funds at commissary.
And the funds happen from where? Just working at the behind the food pantry or whatever?
Well, whatever prison assignment. It could be educational, vocational, or a job one way or another related to running the prison. But it would also be like friend or family who sends you in money. You could have a job inside that industry. Now, but the barber, there is a barber shop within the prison, and on certain nights, once or twice a month.
Who does the hair?
Other inmates.
Other inmates cut your hair?
They do. Yeah, what happens is they give them the barber.
How do they know how to cut hair?
They have pre-existing skills from the street.
Oh, I didn't realize the street skills require to know how to cut hair.
This is what some people are into.
By the way, the tools are secured. Like the inmates that are barbers have to turn their ID card in, and there's a checklist of each and every tool that they were issued.
Prison is a very rough and tumble place. Is there
is.
ever a fear if somebody is cutting your hair? Or that they
might stab you in the neck?
Yeah, stab you in the neck.
Well, that's
because you don't want the wrong guy cutting your hair. I'm assuming it was another Muslim cutting your hair.
People don't just randomly commit acts of violence against you for no reason at all. That having been said, is there a slight fear that somebody might decide to just plug for the hell of it? Huh?
Where were you and what level were you in?
I was in a Max and an Elmira.
Okay.
I was in Elmira 3 times. So I also had Shawangunk, Eastern, and Sing Sing.
At 16 you were in a max?
Yes.
At 17 you were in a max?
Yes, because I was charged as an adult, and when that happens, they send you to a men's maximum security prison.
Well, Linda, you were raised in New York?
I lived in New York City, and then I went on to live in the Bronx.
Right.
And from the Bronx, we moved to West Virginia.
I grew up in a good family, loving, nurturing. Your parents were?
My mom and dad were the best.
The best?
The
That is
best.
quite a testimonial. You came from a big family?
Well, there were 6 of us.
All got along?
We got along.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So
Well,
you're
the older
painting-
ones had to watch my sister and I. We were the smallest.
Right. So you're painting kind of an idyllic childhood.
I feel that, I was happy when I was growing up. My sisters would take me out.
When did you have Jeff?
I was about 26 when I had him.
26. So a reasonably good age, not too early.
Not too early.
Right. Were you ready to have Jeff?
I think I was.
You were. Okay. How was Jeff as a baby? Was he a pain in the ass, or was he?
No,
did he
he
cry
was-
a lot?
No. Well, Jeffrey, I don't know. In one word, I would say he was just loving. I mean,
Quiet kid?
my mom helped raise him too because I was going to work. She would watch him.
You were a single mother.
I was a single mother at that point.
Was that rough on you?
Yes, it was.
was.
I always worked a couple of jobs
Right.
because I wanted Jeffrey to have the things that he needed.
His father wasn't around.
No.
Right. And did you have any relationship with his father?
I loved his father very much.
You
but
did. You were in love with his father.
Yes, I was.
Yeah.
Yes, I was.
And then what happened? Dad left early on, right?
Well, what happened was we were going out, and then, somewhere along the line,
Right. Stuff happens. People
Right.
fall out of favor with each other.
it wasn't so much we fell out of favor. It's just that he was divorced, but it just didn't work because he had other plans, and so.
Sure. How long was the relationship?
When I met his father, I loved him.
You loved him.
We loved him.
Did he return the love?
No, he did return the love
He
to
did.
me. I knew he cared about me a lot.
Right. Okay. When did Dad step out of the picture?
It was long before after I had him. He stepped out.
Was your dad as a child, was he in your life?
Never.
Did you feel a sense from a mother's perspective, how is my son going to grow up without a father? Was there a little concern
I
there?
wasn't worried
worry?
about that because I knew that I could always meet somebody, and you know, if it's meant to be, it's going to happen.
And you played the mother and the father role, and you
Yes.
sort of kept things together.
Yes, I did.
Right.
Except that grandma kind of played a father role too.
Yes.
She played a combination of the mother and the father. The father in the sense that she
Interesting.
was the disciplinarian, but the mother in the sense that she was the stay-at-home parent while my mother was going to the workforce to go to work.
They had a close relationship.
Would you say closer than you and Jeff?
No.
No. Jeff, how do you feel about that? Do you think you were closer with your grandma?
I do.
Yes.
I do.
When you hear him say that, how do you feel?
Well, I mean, I am his mother, and I did love him very much.
Nobody's contending
I
that.
did everything I could for him. I provided. I loved him.
No, but when that no one is calling that into question, though. I
Right.
think
No, we're not calling
no
that.
one is questioning that.
Growing up, it's who you spend the most time with. You spent
Yeah.
the most time
Well,
with your
yeah.
grandma. I'm
Yes.
guessing.
Yeah, exactly.
I asked this about Jeff's childhood because, we recently, somehow, I informed you that your dad passed away. Did you know that his dad passed
No,
away?
I didn't. Jeffrey told me last night.
Oh, he told you last night? Wow. And how did that make you feel?
Well, it made me feel bad. I
Yeah,
mean,
you were
if
upset
I
a
would
little
have
bit.
known that, at the time that it happened,
Yeah.
I would have went to the funeral and I would have.
It's very weird how this all came about because you didn't know.
No.
And you heard it from me, of all people.
Yeah,
And when I told you,
I was kind of stunned.
no, I wouldn't call it stunned. I would call it like I told you it's going to rain tomorrow.
You mentioned to me on the phone, and
No, I told you it's Selwyn's party.
I thought you said it for the second time there.
No,
No?
first
All right,
time was at
okay.
Selwyn's party. Yeah.
Gotcha.
He did see him when he was about maybe a year old.
Right, but a year
In the
old. What does Jeff
carriage.
remember from a year
No,
old?
well,
He doesn't remember
well,
anything.
I know he won't remember it.
Right? Do you remember what happened when
but
you were
for
a year
the
old?
book,
No, I
No.
can't.
For the record,
I can't. For the record.
he saw him when he was a baby. He says, "Oh, his eyes are too far apart. Oh, his ears aren't like
What?
mine." All
That's
the
what his
stupid
dad's saying about
Well,
him?
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
just to clarify
Yeah,
further,
yeah.
before I was born, Dad wanted to get out of financial responsibility. So from the
Of
very
course,
beginning, he was
that-
denying I was his.
Of
And so
course.
the ear and appearance thing was just part and
everything
parcel
is-
of that
right.
routine.
Right.
And by the way, he always maintained that routine, even when I met him in person.
That's
and
what I was gonna get
informed
into.
him
Yes.
who I
Sure.
was. I started mentioning people he knew, so he knew I was telling the truth as far as that. And,
Well, Jeff, you
and
and I-
ultimately, he never accepted me as his son. He just said, "Look, I consider you maybe like a friend, and we used to come by and shoot the breeze a little bit." But he never considered me as his son, even though he knew I considered him as my biological father.
That had an impact on you.
Yeah, it did. It bothered
Yeah.
me some. I hadn't seen him in like 4 or 5 years before he passed,
Right.
and and periodically I would think about, hey, I'm gonna drive to the store and see him.
Right.
And I, life happens. I never quite did. I was always busy with one thing or another, and one other thing or another
Can I
was a
ask you a
better use
question?
of time,
Sure.
and so I never did. So that part of it bothers me.
Have you ever sat down with him and spoke about why he split?
Well, that wasn't my first conversation with him.
That was your first conversation.
Was
with him.
not.
That was. Well, it was. That
Oh, it
was.
was.
It was. Yeah. But again, he kept up his position was that I was not his son
Not his son.
biologically.
Okay,
Right.
just curious.
Yeah, and when I
Even to the end.
Even to the end. And when I wanted to do it, and when I said, look, I have one view, you have another. Why we don't just do a DNA test and get to the bottom
He didn't
of it?
want to do it.
He didn't want to do it. No,
Okay.
because he felt it would be disruptive to his wife and his other kids.
Right. Which is horseshit because if you have a child out there, you'd want to know if there's
Of
another
course.
child that you have out there. Did that have any effect on you when you were in prison? In other words, as far as your dad not being around? No, zero effect, I would imagine.
It
Well,
did.
as the years
With
went
with the
by-
caveat, like what Mom's going to say, the last couple of years I started to think about him a little bit more, and part of that was inspired by
know.
at the end I was transferred to Sing Sing the last 28 days, and he had actually spent time there.
How'd you know
Dad
that?
did because my mom told me.
Ah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Actually, his
So
dad
I
was a
used
little bit of a mobster type.
Yes, he
Yeah,
was.
So what I'm
kind of
saying,
a-
when I go to the yard,
Yes,
I
he
wonder,
was.
well, gee, I wonder if Dad had been to this yard. Did he see like
Did
right
he
to the
see what you're
wall, the bumper?
seeing?
Did he see what I'm seeing? So I thought about that a little
Yeah.
bit more.
When you were pregnant with Jeff, did he come and threaten you and say, if you have the child, I'll burn the house down?
No.
We would go into court to get support, and he
Right.
said, look, if you keep going with this thing, I'm going to blow the house up.
Yes, you were about a year and a half.
Right.
And
Oh,
that-
I see.
You
Oh,
see,
so
the members of the
you gave
the
birth already, year and a half, Jeff.
Yeah,
Got it.
I already had Jeff, but the members that were in the gang,
Mm-hmm.
okay, they knew that he was
When
the
you
son.
say gang, the Italian mob?
Well, yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
Let's
He's
not
dead.
say
There
his
was-
last name.
there
He's-
was,
he's dead-
I'm
he's
not
dead
going
now,
to say
so-
the last name. All I'm saying is that the people that
Don't
were
worry,
in,
Jimmy will come and protect you if there's an issue.
Yeah, he'll get you a pair of glasses and a hood just like his. You can do the routine like him. Yeah.
But I just wanted to say the members of the gang, they knew that Jeffrey was Hank's son. They knew.
Did you
They
ever hear any
acknowledged me.
sideline conversations where they said, "Come on, Hank, do the right thing. He's your son. Get it together"? You never heard anything like that?
No, I
Side
didn't.
talk.
They wouldn't
No.
do it.
And my mother's friend, he also was in the gang, and he would inform me what was
Your
going on.
mother's friend was in the gang.
Yeah, he
Well,
sold jewelry.
You hang out with a rough and tumble crowd back
Well,
in the
it
day,
just
huh?
happened to meet Hank.
Right, and then by
he-
default, everything was kind of,
Yes,
gotcha.
yes.
So Jeff was growing up now. He's 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, starting
Well,
to approach teenage years. What was he like? Was he a quiet kid?
No.
No.
At the age of 9 months old, he
Yeah.
was already running around the house.
9 months old?
Yes, he was. He
you're an
was
early
walking.
starter. Nancy, at 44, did you ever you catch him running around the house anymore?
Well, inside the big body is like a little boy inside.
And rightfully so, we understand why that's the case, right?
That's what happens. Inside the big body is like a little kid in there.
Without
Right.
a doubt.
I
Look what
missed.
you've missed.
You miss
Yes.
all
You
your
know,
life.
went
even
in,
though
you went in from 17 to when?
To 32.
And what are the best years of your life?
17,
18 to 30,
21,
32.
I've had conversations with Selwyn about this, and basically Selwyn's thing is that you're very naive. Just for the record, Selwyn Days is another exoneree.
I know.
Also lost 17 years of his life.
I know.
He went in a little later, so it's a little bit different, you know? It's actually very different, I think, in many cases. He went in, what, at 33, 36 or somewhere around
Something
there?
like that.
And he recently got out. But he says, you should get over it. He thinks it's unhealthy for you to think that you're a young child. And he thinks that you have to start adapting to your biological age and get used to the fact that you're 44 and man up. That's kind of what his thought process is.
sometimes it's easier
Now,
said
now
than
I
done.
don't know.
Sometimes I think
Yes,
it's very
granted.
hard.
I agree with Jimmy as well. It is much easier said than done. Have you had those? You haven't had those conversations with Selwyn.
No, but if I did, I would tell him, number one, it's easier said than done. Number
Yes.
two, it depends on what part of my life you're talking about. When it comes to being an advocate, running a foundation, my education,
Right.
I'm, and then taking care of obligations, responsibilities, I'm wise beyond my years. I'm not
Yes.
really, but when it comes to my personal life, in terms of things I still want to do and want to experience, on that side of it, I'm much younger.
And let's just say off the bat, I have a tremendous amount of respect for you because you are, considering you've had those years robbed from you, an overachiever.
Oh, no
You're
doubt.
an overachiever. Got 2 degrees in prison.
I almost got 2 years. I was 1 year short of the
In what?
bachelor's. I
In
got
what?
the associate's
All right, so
in
a
liberal
degree and a
arts
half in
and,
prison.
and completed the bachelor's degree out here through a scholarship from Mercy College.
Right.
I got a master's degree from John Jay College,
for you.
criminal
Criminal
justice.
justice.
And I'm 1 year away
You
from
gotta love that,
and
huh?
I'm 1 year away from graduating law school at the Elizabeth Hobbs School of Law at Pace University.
Right. I thought about what Selwyn said, and there is some validity to it on some level because I think sometimes you got to be healthy and you got to go with the life that you're in. On the flip side, though, I totally understand what you're saying, that you were robbed all these years and you need some time to catch up. However, given that, though, you've been out for
12 years.
12 years, and that is more than enough time to get your yayas out and go out and do what you got to do and date and whatever you got going on.
Assuming that happened.
When he went in, he's 17 or 18.
17.
17. Spent 14 years?
16.
16 years in. So his 50% of his life was in prison up to then.
Yeah.
It's such a mind fuck. And
Right.
excuse my language because I don't
How
curse.
dare you curse at the table?
But it's such a mind screw. You can't criticize him for the way he is.
I'm not criticizing. I never criticized Jeff. I actually said he's an overachiever, and I have a tremendous, for the record, Jeff, and you know this, we've had conversations. I have a tremendous amount of respect and admiration for Jeff.
No,
My
I'm
hat
not
goes
saying
off
you
to him
don't.
because, frankly, if I was in Jeff's shoes and I got out and I got my settlement, I might melt on the couch every day
Well, you don't
and
know
do
what you
shit.
do. My
I might
point-
just watch Fox News every
my
day.
But my point being, Tommy, is
That's a side joke
If-
between
I
Jeff and I.
I know that. I do watch Fox News.
if you think about what
you
he's
do.
been through, that he's able to function at all
Right.
in
Well, I kept-
society
I kept going up to visit him.
is
giving him faith.
is pretty amazing. So
Thank you.
I think you're doing okay.
All right, let's move on. Did Jeff laugh a lot as a kid?
Yeah, Yeah, he did his
He did.
laughing when.
Did you
especially-
feel like you were spirited as a kid? In other words, did you feel like you had a happy childhood? There's a lot of...
Yeah, because I grew up in an apartment complex, Crossroads
Right.
Apartments in Peekskill. There was
Right.
there was like it was a ton of buildings, and there was a ton of kids that lived around the buildings, and they used to come in, and I was like one of the main centers of attention. Pretty much whatever I would suggest would be what we would do. So whether kickball, we're going to play Monopoly, we're
Right.
going to go swimming, we're going to play basketball. We played lots of sports. Mom was great as far as, I had lots of, my friends were always welcome to come to the house. She used to take them out to dinner. She would buy pizza. We would have parties. She'd take my friends there. So
nice.
it was a lot of sport. It was a lot of fun growing up.
I noticed that when you and I, we have conversations sometimes, and I noticed also with, what's with the look?
I'm anticipating something humorous, humorous yet true.
Is it with exonerees because they went through so much, you want to just get as much laughter out as possible, and you just go into these uncontrollable fits of laughter?
No, because there's too many exonerees that I know that don't do that. To the extent the spirit of what you're asking me is true, we have an appreciation for a type of gallows humor.
Right. Is it dark?
It's dark.
Yeah.
It's
Macabre?
dark. It's macabre. Yeah. So
right.
we might
Which you have to have, right? Because
Yeah.
when you're in prison,
Yeah.
you need that dark sense of
Right, but
humor.
we might look back on one crazy court ruling or another, or one crazy
Right.
thing about prison life with the guards or some crap
Right.
that you gotta laugh about, even though it's not funny in and of itself. It's
Yeah.
just having been there, done that, and survived and lived to tell about it, that you laugh about something nuts. You can laugh at the ignorance. So there's that part of it. But the other thing is, for me personally, laughter has always been a stress relief mechanism. So other people release stress in different ways. I hold it in, and
Right.
eventually that's got to come out in the form of laughter. And at that point, anything could serve as the trigger.
You mentioned holding it in. Through our conversations sometimes, I also get the sense that you're expressive, and you've been tremendously expressive with me because we went through some very intimate moments with you and I. However, I also get the sense that you're not as expressive as you'd like to be, and there is stuff that's bottled up inside of you that you don't always come out because you might get a little uncomfortable in your skin. Is that true or no?
Yeah, that's true.
How does that manifest on your life? Is it with Nancy? I mean, with me, you've been open, and we have a sort of, mano a mano. We had a little guide thing together.
Sure.
At what points in your life does it happen where you feel like you just can't be Jeff? You're closed off.
Depends on the setting and who I'm talking about. So that's part of it. But another part of it is when I realize that there's nothing in a person's background that would enable them to really understand what I'm saying, then that's the situation too.
And for the record, I think you are a really good conversationalist. In other words, I would imagine that
Yeah,
on
he's a
some
very
level,
good talker.
a very good talker. I think so.
Very
Yeah.
good talker.
I think on some
Very,
level,
very
you would think
educated.
automatically, by default, you would think that if anybody went through what you went through, they would come out and they'd be stifled. They couldn't put two words together.
You were very, very advanced for your age, even when you were a baby. And I knew that you were going to have to get into something that would keep you interested, especially all those Atari games and ColecoVision and Atari and whatever
How
else.
dare you give him ColecoVision?
He was very happy when he received it.
Is it fair to say that Jeff always wants the glory? He wants to be center stage?
Yes.
He does. Yes.
Yes.
Nancy?
Yeah, he liked that.
Nancy?
Jimmy, what do you think? You think he likes attention?
I think he deserves it.
We all
Wow.
agree. We all agree that he does deserve it. Yes, I agree.
Part of it though is I like attention because I have, when I speak, I have something, unless I'm just clowning around as a social situation. Other than that, when I speak, it's because I have something important to say.
Yes.
And I think it's not already being said articulated by anybody else. So
Well,
that's part
without
of it.
mentioning any names,
That's part of it.
you said to me that there is someone that we both know that usually likes to take the glory, likes to take the spotlight.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
You don't think you have some of that in you as well?
No, because in many situations I throw people in front of me and deflect attention to them so that they can get the spotlight. So now there's two of us.
Point taken. Okay. Thursday, January 25, 1990.
Day of my arrest, yes.
Jeff Deskovic, a recently turned 16-year-old high school sophomore, arrived at the Peekskill police station ready to take a polygraph exam. You were accompanied by your close friend Martin Barrett.
Correct.
Are you still friends with him, by the way?
I am.
So you guys are still tight?
Yeah, we are. It's
Okay.
the only really one from my childhood that I'm, well, one of two
And did he
people.
stick by you in prison? Did he come and see you?
Yes. The short answer, I mean, if you were to sum it up, you could say yes. But the minutia of it, while being concise,
Yeah.
is he stuck with me for 5 years.
Right.
And then we went separate ways.
Right.
And then we reconnected again after I was exonerated.
Right. And so you did have some level of support there for the first 5 years.
Yeah, from
Right,
yeah,
which
Martin-
helped a lot,
which
right?
helped. Which helped. Martin
Right.
came up and we talked on the phone and whatnot.
Right.
Yes.
Okay. Cops had encouraged Jeff to help with the investigation into the rape and murder of his classmate. Now, mention once that you wanted to be a cop.
Yeah, my
Okay.
fantasy childhood career as a kid, pre-teenage years, was I wanted to be a cop.
Is this why you were...
Well, this unexpected early opportunity to do this quasi-police work, that's how it held the appeal to me, how they pulled the wool over
And
my
they
eyes.
were-
along
they
with
were-
16.
I know what
but,
they
but,
were
but
doing.
aside from that, though, too.
Granted, let me just say one thing, though. It is odd for a 16-year-old...
But I didn't. They encouraged me to. They
course.
told me to. Look, the kids won't talk
Oh,
free
so they
around
pulled
us.
you in. It wasn't that you said, hey, could I hop
No,
along? and-
no. They pulled me in.
Right.
And then they started asking me opinion questions and, hey, you're congratulating my opinion's correct. They made me
Right.
center of attention.
Interesting.
And stop in from time to time. You know, come on, let's have some pizza and, you know, coffee and everything else. But
Okay,
that
so-
intersected with my growing up with a single parent because my dad was ever in my life, and one of the cop techniques was the good cop, bad cop technique.
Right.
And
Exactly.
So the officer was pretending to be my friend. I began to look up to him as a positive adult male role model.
Because I was trying to get the routine, because it is very odd for a 16-year-old kid to pal around with a bunch of older men to go on an investigation. But you didn't have to do it, but you did it because you...
They kept encouraging me.
No,
to.
but I understand, but you could have said no. You
Well, why
did it
would I
bec-
though? I wanted to be a cop when I was growing up, and they were making me feel welcome and
Of
important.
course. If you think, all right, I'm going to help you solve a murder mystery or a murder case, yeah, I'm in.
Yeah.
I'm in. I'm in.
Granted.
Plus, the cops are there to help us. They're our friend. They protect us, right?
I
They're
didn't
not
want
there
him
to
to
trick
do
us.
that.
Well, let me get Linda's perspective, and I want you to repeat that again. So basically, though, I'm not slamming anything on your parental skills.
Right.
But
I understand.
my mother, you know, my curfew was always 2 hours earlier than everybody else's. You can't go there. Ma, there's a skateboard park I want to go to in Staten Island. We lived in Brooklyn. No, you can't go to Staten Island. She was she had the reins on me.
Right.
Was this your parental skills,
Yes,
or were you a little
I
bit
didn't
more
want
freer
him,
with Jeff?
I didn't want him going out after 9 o'clock.
When he went through this whole thing,
Well, Martin went with him. They went to the park.
oh, I see. So you allowed him to go.
Not really. I didn't
No.
want him going. They went anyway.
The answer is
That's
at
the
16
truth.
years old, at 15, 16, there was not tight.
Yes,
rein.
it was. You was
the
not
aspect,
allowed
in the,
to
in the,
be
in the-
out there.
In the aspect of that, look, this is right around the time, right, 15 to 18, where there's the struggle between parents and kids over freedom and you know, in charge. I mean, you understand? So that conflict, that dynamic was in swing.
Right.
Okay, and as a result of that, yeah, I used to go out and go places where mom didn't want me to. But it's not like she said, hey, you're not going, and then I would not go.
Right.
She
So-
would more say, hey, don't go, and I would go anyway.
When
Is
it
it-
was getting dark outside, I wanted you in the house
We're
with
not
your
saying
brother.
that you didn't. But
I know, but
I
Grandma
went out
was
anyway,
there,
though, right?
especially if I went out or.
But did I
had
go out
something to
anyway,
do.
though?
No, Grandma
I
would
didn't.
not let you out.
Okay.
At 16, is it fair to say, true or false, that you had a little bit of free reign as a 16-year-old to travel in
Yeah.
and out? You didn't say, "Mom, I'm going here."
No,
that
I
you were
did
kind
not
of
say
doing.
that.
You were doing your.
Yes.
You were sort of on some level at 16 a mini adult.
In a way.
Fair game
yes,
to say?
fair game to say.
Right. Okay.
Not by parental agreement, but just by the way things were playing out.
Right.
In other
so,
words, I
right,
didn't
and
just
that-
have free reign
and-
because
and
you
What
granted-
kind
allowed
of a
me
mother
to,
would
but-
I be if I would let you go out?
No,
when
no,
it's
and
pitch
granted,
dark
Linda,
outside?
we're not saying that you were happy
I'm
about
worried
it.
about you.
But like all kids, I guess we can paint the picture that maybe a 16-year-old kid, like all 16-year-old kids, they want to be free.
Well, I
mean,
didn't. I wasn't. I
This
stayed in the
especially
house
in
with
the
my
80s
mother.
and
and
But then
father.
again, though, you grew up in a very different time too.
I
So
don't
was
care
it-
what time it is.
Well-
All I know is the way I wanted it to be. I don't want something to happen to him. I didn't want him out there. It's dark out there, and I was afraid something was going to happen, especially the girl Angela was killed and all, and I was upset. I'm sorry that she got killed.
Right.
And I knew he never did it.
Was there ever a moment where you might have thought, could Jeff have done this?
No.
No. Okay.
No.
That's fair game. You skipped a couple days of school to go to this police station, or no? Or
Well, it was only
it
one. The day that I arrived at the police station for the polygraph, I skipped the whole day of school. But the rest of my encounters with the police, the 6 weeks run up to that, was like after school or on weekends.
When you came home at nighttime, I'm assuming you knew. Did you tell your mom, hey, I was with the cops, I was helping them out? Or you were
in
keeping that
general.
close to your vest?
No, I was keeping that. No, I kept it close to the vest. No, because
you wouldn't really tell her because you didn't want to worry her.
Because I already knew she didn't want me to do that.
In retrospect, looking back, do you realize that was a mistake?
Yeah, obviously.
Okay, all right. The Joe Berlinger, is that
That's
his
his
name?
name, yeah,
Joe
Joe
Berlinger
yeah,
doc
yeah.
reported that you were, quote unquote, talking to the police, offering your own theories about what had happened. How would you possibly know what had happened?
Well, look. Are you able to theorize about something?
We all do.
All right. Well, I could
That's
too.
it, of
I
course.
could too. And then on top of that,
Depending on how much information
and then
you
Yeah,
on
but
give
wait a
top-
minute,
No,
time
no, no,
out.
no.
When you're in school, though, and you realize the classmate has been murdered and raped,
Because listen, there's
and he hardly knows her, what theories are you going to come up with?
no
I'm going to
theory,
tell you. I'm
it's-
going to tell you because when there's rumors, okay, and when there's rumors and when there's newspaper articles, and then the cops are telling you things
Of course,
also.
that's what I'm
they're
talking
telling you,
about.
and then they turn around later on and ask you
Right,
something
so that's
they
the
just told
key, is
you.
they were
Exactly.
setting you up.
Yes, sir.
Kept on feeding you information.
Correct.
Because they're building you up.
Right.
Right? They're building you up. They
Right.
want, this is what they're doing.
And it was kind of a perfect storm because you wanted to be a cop and you're like, oh, I'm going to help these guys out. I might, get in at the right time, this kind of thing. Okay.
Yes, sir.
To Jeff's surprise, it says, after sending Martin away, the police drove, Jeff, you guys drove for 40 minutes to Brewster, New York,
Yeah, out of county. Not just out of city, but out of county.
to the private polygraph office of Putnam County investigator Dan Stevens, which
Correct.
is the degenerate in question.
Correct.
Who is known for having a knack for getting confessions.
Yes.
They put knack in quotes here. Okay.
Yeah, they're quoting him. He said that during deposition. at
He
one
said
point.
that during, okay.
Yes, he said.
There's a lot to this case.
No, there is,
Well, I
absolutely.
see
You're
already
right.
where this is going.
Right, so basically,
And by the way, he testified that he carried out a procedure called GTC, which meant get the confession.
your mom know about the
No.
test?
Voluntary?
So she was,
They got me to agree to take the test. Look, kid, we got some new stuff in the file, but you
Right.
got to pass the polygraph first.
Right.
Almost like how someone working in the intelligence
Right, exactly.
field. All right, so that's how they got me to agree to take the test.
Okay.
And so I went to the police station rather than go to school, and I went with the cops to Brewster, and I was there until like 7 o'clock at night.
Okay.
you were sort of kind of clueless about all of this
Yeah.
until they called and said your son confessed.
Yeah, yes,
They
yeah,
called the
but they
house?
called and said I was arrested. They didn't say, hey, he confessed. They just said, your son's arrested. You want to come down to the station?
And that was after the
And
confession.
I was
Yes.
floored.
Of
I was
course, as a
floored.
mother, from a
Oh, my
mother's
God.
perspective, sure, absolutely. It says here again, in chronological order, unbeknownst to Jeff, he was their primary suspect. Now, the question begs, why? Why would they make you their primary suspect? Is it on account of laziness? They didn't want to go out and do a real investigation, or because you came from an idyllic childhood? You don't strike me as, I didn't know you at 16, but you don't strike me as a guy that would do murder, right?
No, certainly
Well,
not.
why?
You know?
Why you?
Was it laziness, or did they really think it was you? That's the question.
I know why they focused on me. According to them, their theory was really based around three things, right? And again, this is according to them. They said that my emotional reaction to my classmate having been killed was disproportionate to what my actual relationship with her was. No, yeah, so in other words, they thought like my emotion is because it's guilt. So that was one aspect to it.
That's sloppy police work. In other
It
words, you
is.
can't just think somebody's guilty because they care too much. It just seems absurd. I'm not a cop, but it just seems an absurd notion to think
I
that.
agree with you.
Without a doubt.
And the second thing, when they interviewed other high school students, some of them told the police that you might want to talk to him. Because I described my life outside of school, but in school I had like a different life. Like there, I wasn't as familiar with the kids, and so I was kind of quiet to
You kept to
myself. I
yourself.
kept to myself.
Okay.
Right. And so the idea that a strange, quiet person commits heinous crimes is the theory that we're going in.
It looks
so,
like
so those two factors.
ready to make a movie out of this one.
And the third thing is that they got a member of the New York Police, the Manhattan Police Department, to put together a psychological profile
Of you.
of what they thought that the actual perpetrator would be like, and I happen to fit those
You fit
characteristics.
those
characteristics, and so
gotcha.
there's a reinforcing factor.
I just want to say, they're asking him, well, what could have happened? Jeffrey said, well, maybe she was dragged here, and then they put the leaves on her body, and he was making suggestions, and they want to know, well, how could you come up with such a theory?
Right, which leads us to the next thing.
Because he was using his brain. That's the kind of a child he was. He was very smart and intelligent.
Right. Well, in this case, would you say maybe he might have been too smart for his own good?
A little bit.
Question, Tommy?
A little
Did they
bit.
give you any information that maybe other people didn't know about this case?
Yes, they did.
I got a very detailed
Go,
layout.
go,
here. Okay,
go.
would you shut
I'm
the
sorry.
fuck up one second?
Go.
Jesus Christ, I can't believe you just said that on air.
All right, I'm sorry. Forgive me.
he's allowed.
Well, our show gets a little colorful sometimes.
Yeah, you're a little rough and tumble. But
Over the course of several encounters, police described specific non-public facts. So they kept so just like feeding candy to a kid, they started feeding you certain stuff.
Yes.
To
So, for
sort of
example,
almost
they
get into
mentioned-
your subconscious.
yeah, they mentioned all the leaves here, and by the way,
Yeah.
she's missing a key, and you know,
Right.
over time they gave me certain details, and
Right.
so when it comes time to the
How much
false
time was from the beginning to end of when they finally,
6 weeks.
over a 6-week period?
It's
Okay,
amazing.
okay.
Police told Jeff that they needed further assistance with the investigation, but they could not show him the information in the file cabinet.
That's how they got me to agree to take the polygraph.
Right. So they asked for a polygraph and a blood sample as well?
Yep.
Right. The
DNA,
blood
which I
sample.
provided.
Right. So the blood sample they did, right?
Yes.
Okay. Which is absurd because after that they didn't want to check the DNA?
No, they did check the DNA, but they didn't get they weren't content to wait till they got the results back.
Couldn't that be used as evidence in the court?
It was. What I'm saying is that
Oh, that's right. I'm jumping the gun. Forgive me. Yes. Okay.
You?
Good point. Yes. So I'm jumping the gun. Yeah.
Really?
Any
Hard to
opportunity he
believe.
gets. Okay.
Hard to believe.
So they asked for a polygraph and a blood sample as well. Okay. At this point, we're sort of halfway through this thing. You know, what were you thinking? I mean, when they're asking you for polygraph, they're asking you for blood sample. Did it just occur to you that am I the suspect here?
my interactions with the cops always had the dynamic that half the time they would talk to me as a suspect, and half the time they would talk to me like they needed my help to solve the crime. So they
Right.
would push too hard on Jeff as the suspect, and I would start to get nervous and uncomfortable. They'd switch back to Jeff as the helper. So.
Good cop, bad cop.
Right.
Right,
So when
right.
he asked for the blood sample, the detective
That would have
who
been a
asked
red.
me.
That's the red
But
flag.
no,
that
when he
one.
took it, he took the sample. He said, "Look, this could be one way that we would eliminate you as a suspect."
Right.
And I thought, well, yeah, all right, fine. Then
Okay.
we can just
Because
stick
you
with
were
me as the
innocent, so
helper.
you're not
and
thinking
I'm
about
thinking I'm
anything,
innocent.
Which
so,
is a
you
smart
know.
thing to say, a very clever thing to say to a 16-year-old
Of
child.
course.
Yeah, of course. Anyway, eager to help the police solve the case, Jeff agreed, and you just went with the with this crazy plan. And by
Yes.
the way, just for the record, nothing short of child abuse,
Right.
from the start till the point where you were, you confessed. We'll get in that in a second. When they arrived at Stevens' office around 9 a.m. with officers Tumalo,
Well, Lieutenant Tumalo at that time.
Levine, and McIntyre.
Yes.
Jeff, you okay?
No,
You
I'm okay. I'm
I know
okay.
you're sighing. Is it,
No,
as we go through this, is it tough for you to sort of, even now after all
Well,
this time?
no, I'm.
Is it tough for you to
Well, it's,
listen to?
it's hard, but
Yeah.
I want
I know
to.
you've been through it many times, but
Yes. No, that Levine was very nasty.
the Levine was nasty to
him.
you
Yeah,
too?
because he wanted to go out with me, and I didn't want to go out with him.
Jesus Christ.
And that's why they put
One
it
of
on
the
him.
cops, one of these guys wanted to go out with you?
Yes. This is why this was put on my
you know this?
son.
No.
That's truth.
So this is news to you?
Yes.
You just,
My
you
hand
just
to
threw us a
God, I'm
bulletin.
not
So,
lying.
but basically though, is it fair to say that if Levine wanted to go out with her, maybe he was trying to get close to her to get more information? Is that-
Well,
w-
that's
is
not
that-
what she's saying. She's trying to say that might have been a motivation as to why they picked me as a revenge because.
Oh, you're
well,
looking at it
that's
because
what
you turned him down,
Yes.
and he wanted to be vindictive, and he wanted to sort
Because
of.
they put it on
crazy.
him. You don't
This
know
is
the way
crazy.
the cops
This
are.
is
You
all
don't
nutty. I mean,
know
look,
how the
the
cops
truth of the
are.
matter
Wait,
is-
Levine, did Levine know you prior to the case?
Yes.
Prior to him ever being
Yes,
arrested?
Oh, you knew the cop beforehand.
Yes.
Right.
Wow.
Okay, let's move on. It's really, really weird. So basically, you arrived at the office at 9 a.m. with Tumalo, Levine, and McIntyre. Jeff understood that no one but the police knew where he was.
Right.
So you knew that, and you didn't know where he was.
No.
Right.
No, I didn't.
Police had used a highly respected NYPD polygrapher, Millie Markman, to do at least 2 other polygraphs in this case. Not on you, though.
No.
The 2 other polygraphs were for other suspects
No, they were for other people the police encountered in the course of the investigation.
that were possible suspects of what
They
happened.
were either suspects or witnesses. I don't know.
Right, I see. I got you.
Anybody, whoever they
But
picked
the
up off
point
the
the
street.
point that my
switched.
lawyers was making in putting that in there is they switched because they knew that
Right.
Stevens was going to carry out the get the confession technique,
Right.
unlike the legitimate polygraph on Markham, even though a polygraph always is not scientific.
Right.
But she knew that Markham wasn't going to do the bullshit.
Is
that
the
that-
polygraph's
that
not admissible,
investigator-
is it?
It's not.
Okay.
All right. Tumalo denied at his deposition there was any reason why they used Stevens over Markman in Jeff's case, but in his February 6, 1990 letter commending Stevens for his work, he indicated that Stevens was chosen to get a confession. So Stevens knew that the police thought Jeff committed the crime, but did not have enough evidence to arrest him. Did you get the sense that cops knew that you convicted the crime, but they didn't have enough evidence to arrest you?
No. I thought, as far as I was concerned, I was there to help the cops.
Okay.
In fact, I blurted that out. That was the first thing I did when I said Stevens. That I
Yeah.
said I'm here to help the cops.
Right.
And it said that he said he was taken aback by that statement. Like he didn't know what the hell was meant. But nonetheless,
I
he
see.
didn't stop and clarify. The show continued.
His goal was to get a confession from Jeff. However, when Jeff told Stevens he was there to help the police solve the crime, Stevens said nothing and ushered him into the polygraph room.
Yes.
So he didn't ask questions or anything. Boom, let's get in the polygraph room right away.
Just get
right?
on with it.
Right.
Piece of work. Is what it is, man.
Almost immediately, Stevens attached Jeff to the polygraph machine. This is the part that really bugs me, which remained attached throughout the day. Now, for the record, a polygraph machine, it states here verbatim, attaches via rubber elbows secured around the chest and abdomen by a chain, a blood pressure cuff on one upper arm, and electrodes connected to the instrument by wires. With all sensors attached, quote unquote, the subject is effectively tied to his chair.
Correct.
So
my God.
basically, you're taking, you didn't know about this?
Not really.
No, that's what a
Not-
lie
not-
detector
So
is.
basically, you're taking a 16-year-old child, and the psychological ramifications of this is that, did you feel a sense that you were tied down?
Yes.
You did.
I did.
Right.
Yeah. The only thing I want to add is prior to wiring me up to that, he gave me maybe like six to 8 cups of coffee.
We're getting
To
to
get me
that.
wired up.
Sure. Okay. So the
Serious?
next.
And they wouldn't
God.
give him
Crazy.
anything to eat.
Yeah,
so
that's another
after
fair
they did
point.
the test.
Right.
Well,
Well,
not until after the
Look, it's a
beyond the-
setup. We
keep
know
going.
it's a
quoting from
setup.
the complaint,
Quoting from the complaint.
the next 8 hours, which they claim is 3 to 4 times the length of a customary polygraph,
Right.
Stevens aggressively interrogated Jeff. We're getting to the fun part now. Asking the same question over and over, accusing him of the crime many times, failing to accept Jeff's truthful denials, according to your lawyer in the complaint,
Right.
of involvement, intentionally invading his personal space and yelling.
Yes.
So basically, I mean, this is where it becomes to a point sadistic, we can say, because we have a grown adult who is not your father, who is not your uncle, who is not anybody close to you, yelling at a 16-year-old child that is tied into a chair.
Yeah.
And let's state for the record, I didn't know this after I read this, just turned 16. So
Right.
you're barely 16. We could say that
Correct.
you're 15 for all intents and purposes, right?
Correct.
terrible.
Yes, it's true.
Okay, so at this point, you are still clueless. You know nothing about what's going
No,
on.
I was
Okay.
not told he was in
Fair
Brewster
game. Okay, good.
or taking the test.
When you found out about the interrogation, it seems like you're finding out for the first time now about the way it happened.
Well, I didn't know
Well, she
what
didn't
they
know the
did.
minutia. She didn't know. I
She
was
didn't know the
strapped-
minutia about
got
strapped in and all
in.
that
No,
stuff.
I
The
didn't know any of
description of
that.
the electrodes and everything else. She didn't know that part. Of it.
So the police knew that Jeff had eaten nothing since the night before, and yet while Levine made multiple, so these guys were eating. All right, while you remained strapped, they went to get a lunch break,
Yeah.
and you just sat there in the chair just strapped.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, except except that Stevens didn't leave the room. Stevens kept at work except when he briefly left and came back. So I just wanted to be clear. When they're eating, they're talking about the Peekskill cops, not the polygraphists.
Right.
He kept at his work.
Right.
So I didn't get any break for lunch.
And Selwyn, at least they gave him a dry piece of pizza. This guy, they gave him nothing but coffee.
They pumped me full of coffee before they attached me to the polygraph, and after that, there was no more coffee. It was all go time at that point. It was all aggression.
And the complaint says Stevens knew that these conditions would render any polygraph unreliable. According to the complaint,
Yes,
this
correct.
is word for word.
Yes.
Okay. The method that Stevens employed for questioning Jeff, the Arthur method,
Yes.
which I'm sure you're familiar with
I
by
am.
now,
I am.
had by 1990 been soundly discredited in the polygraph community. So he's using a method that is
considered to be not reliable, particularly apt for causing false confessions.
as it says here specifically, as geared towards getting confessions rather than determining if someone is telling the truth. Nancy, you want to say something?
No, I just, it's so sad. Everything was,
It's crazy, right?
It's terrible. I have a
sad.
son, and I think about my son, something will happen like that, I would go crazy.
It's
Right.
crazy.
Well, specifically in the complaint, it says
Understandable.
that there's a better chance of an innocent person passing an Arthur polygraph is no better than flipping a coin. Which is totally absurd when you're talking about
And that's under normal
a 16-year-old
That's under
child.
normal conditions.
Right,
And that's
right.
not under this get the confession rubric.
That's a great point. Stevens knew better, as he had also been trained in the Baxter method, which is considered a valid deception detection technique in the polygraph community. Stevens told Jeff that he failed the test and said to him, "You just told me within yourself through the polygraph results that you committed it. All we want you to do is verbalize it." Now,
Yes.
that's a huge.
What a
I mean,
terrible
when he comes back in
Yeah.
and you hear that line,
Weight of that psychologically, that's heavy.
what happened? Did everything just go surreal for you at
Yes,
that
it
moment?
did. Yes, it did.
Right.
Of course.
And did you start?
Well, I made my fear, which was already high, had been getting higher per each hour because
Yeah.
it kept us up 6.5 to 7 hours. But that really
Walk me
made it
through-
go off the charts.
Walk me through the thoughts. In other words, you would think, what the fuck did I just? I mean, you must have had this moment, and you're like, what is going on?
Yeah, yeah. What's going on? Yes.
Right. A lot of fear, or just more shock, if anything.
No, both.
Both. Wow.
It's a wonder his hair didn't turn white. He was scared.
You don't color your hair, Jeff?
No.
Well, listen, he could look like Tommy. It's not the worst thing in the world.
Right, but then
You don't
here's
color
a
your
key
hair.
point.
That's pretty. I'm very
But
impressed.
here's a key point. We're describing the state of affairs in my mind, and you're going to get to this in a complaint next, I'm sure. But this is where they switched it up psychologically. They sent he then leaves, and the cop comes in, who'd been pretended to be my friend.
The polygraph, quote unquote, administered by Stevens was not geared towards finding out if Jeff was telling the truth, but was simply a ploy used to elicit a confession, which to me, right away when I read that, I say there's something gravely wrong with our justice system. That is not the way. Any idiot can tell you that, right? Fair
Yes,
game.
fair game.
Having failed to secure a confession and having discussed the interrogation with the other officers throughout the day, Stevens turned Jeff over to McIntyre. Now, this guy McIntyre,
the good cop.
The good cop. Now, this guy McIntyre,
You mean that seriously, the good
No,
cop?
no,
Oh,
that's
okay,
the
good
role he's
cop.
playing.
Okay, I
I
got
That's the
you.
role
understand.
he's playing.
Okay,
It
gotcha.
kind of reminds me of like in Pulp Fiction when they called Winston Wolfe, they called the Harvey Keitel rollover.
I'll be there in 10.
He rings the bell. He says,
I'm Winston Wolfe. I solve problems.
so basically, McIntyre further interrogated the frightened and confused teenager who the officers knew had, and I bulked this thing up, emotional problems in the complaint for approximately 2 more hours. Now, I mentioned this with you, and I think for me, now again, I'm not a psychologist, I'm not a psychiatrist, but I've had some dealings with people that have autism, and I brought this up with you. And you said that you had some issues, is it developmental?
In a very narrow area of spatial relations, knowing where one thing is
Sure.
on another, reading a map, that
Right.
kind of things.
Right.
I have a learning disability in that limited area.
When they say emotional problems, is that what they're referring to?
The general emotional state that I had in general with the victim having been murdered. But again, it's not that unusual because this shook up the whole city to the point that free mental
Yes.
health services were open to anybody who wanted it.
Basically, at some point, because there was a line here, and again, it was a little bit the complaint. I don't know if it got. I only got this phrase. It came out of nowhere. Maybe there was an issue with the transmission of the complaint or something. 6 bullets in his gun, and need Jeff's confessions to stave them off. Did they ever threaten? Did anybody ever say to you?
He said, "I'm in there fighting for you, but I don't. But I'm shooting blanks. Give me some ammunition. Give me some bullets for my gun."
Oh, is that what they said?
That's
he
what
he
he
didn't
said.
say to you, the guy's got 6 bullets in the gun.
No.
and it's gonna
it was
prevent him from
no,
shooting you.
No. But
that
he did.
wasn't
But
said.
no.
It's
But
a
he
figure
did
of
say.
speech.
But he did say that the other officers were going to harm you. I've been holding them off. Look,
Right.
kid. I can't do it anymore. You're on your own here. Look, just tell them what they want to
Right,
hear.
tell-
I'll
give
go,
them- right.
we're going to stop what they're doing. You're going to get out of here. And look, you're not going to be arrested.
Just tell them you did it.
Just tell
Don't
them you
worry
did it.
about
Don't worry
it.
about it. And
we'll walk and we'll get out of here. Not a problem.
Yes,
Okay.
correct.
And the worst part about this is that he got all this shit, threats, coercions, whatever, and it says verbatim here, nor is there any tape recording of Stevens' interrogation, even though Tumalo and McIntyre understood the importance of taping at the time, and McIntyre claimed he was under the impression Stevens would tape the session. Did those guys, were they legitimately under the impression that Stevens was taping the session?
No.
No, so it's a whole bunch of horseshit.
Yes.
Okay. He was
How
listening.
could they be? He knew what the hell they were.
course,
Of course,
he knew what
he knew that they weren't recording.
Right. He was listening when McIntyre told Jeff that if he would just tell the officers what they wanted to hear, he would not be arrested. He would spend a short time in a mental institution, and his family would not find out, which is absurd. When they say your family will not find out, at some point you're thinking, oh, come on, they're trying to set me up, because how could your family not? I mean, to me, it would raise a red flag. Did that raise a red flag?
No, because
No.
because,
I
because
agree
the, but the reason is because when they said, look, you're just going to go to a mental hospital. My objection was, well, wait a minute. Well, what is my family going to think? And so their way of brushing
I
that
see.
aside. No. It's going to be such a short stay,
Exactly.
kid, that they're never even going to know.
You gotta
So it's
remember
not
who
like they
you're
came
dealing
out
with.
with the whole thing in one shot.
You're
to
dealing
me.
with a 16-year-old naive.
Were you a strict disciplinarian, and how did you discipline your son?
Well-
did you hit him? Were there slaps on the butt?
Well, a couple of times I did spank him when he was small on his butt a couple
Right.
of times. But
But
as he
nothing
started,
physically-
No, I didn't harm him or anything.
Right.
But as he got older, we were close.
Right.
And, you know, when I got paid on Fridays, I would ask him, all right, let's go shopping. And I used to buy him a couple of tapes that he wanted because he was really good.
Granted,
Kept-
okay,
No,
good.
really.
Let's
But that's
move
not
on.
what he's
So,
asking, but go ahead.
so the question to you is, you didn't want your mom to find out. Was it more fear out of disappointing her, or fear that you're going to be punished?
Well, I thought I would get in trouble.
You thought you'd get in trouble.
Well,
so
yeah,
it
because-
wasn't
because
the
I knew
fear
that
of
she
like,
never- I knew that
my
she
mom
never-
can't know about this because I don't want to disappoint her.
No.
You know the whip is going to come cracking down.
No, I just
Oh,
knew
it
she
was
would.
no
No, it wasn't that either. It was that I knew that she would be upset with me because she never wanted me to be there in the first place.
Gotcha. So Jeff broke down and blurted out a confession, including the facts the police had fed to him, right?
Yes.
Which is understandable. Stevens returned to the polygraph room, stood there as Tumalo told Jeff to repeat his confession, and watched as Jeff sobbed in a fetal position on the floor. And again, when I read this, I want to take you and hug you, right? I mean, first of all, these guys are grown men, they're adults. And it's such an awful thing to think of you as a 16-year-old child. You did what you just did. Your mind is replaying this over and over again now, right? Because you must be in this world of like, oh my God, everything's just surreal, and you're in a fetal position and you're crying. You're bawling your eyes out, obviously.
Correct.
And these guys, were they on some level? I see you reliving this. I see you're getting a little emotional right now.
Yeah, he's...
It's okay.
keep
It's
going.
okay.
Yeah,
It's
we'll
okay.
keep going.
You want to cry?
No,
Ratings go through the roof.
Yeah.
Tears are a good thing.
Okay, so I'm just joking.
I was
Jeff.
violated as a mother, what they did to him.
You were yes.
Yes.
Of course.
I agree. Was there, when they saw a young kid, these grown degenerates, when they saw a young kid sobbing in a fetal position on the floor, did you get a sense that there was any kind of regret or any
No,
kind of,
because
was there
that's
any
what they
emotion
wanted,
coming out
Tommy.
of them or anything? Because, they got what they got at
But
this
that's
point.
what they wanted.
I
They
don't
wanted
think
him
he-
in
I
a fetal
understand
position.
that.
Well, the one
Could you
thing
believe
they did after that, though, is
I
the
don't
cop was
think you could
pretending
believe
to
No,
what
it's
was
okay.
happening.
It's okay.
No,
Was there
no,
any
they did.
kind of-
The cop was pretending to be my friend. He was, it's okay, and he started like going like this to my.
It's okay. You're
Yeah,
gonna
right.
get. You're
So
gonna
there
get
was
20
some
years to
level-
life. It's
yeah, right,
okay.
exactly,
It's
yeah.
okay.
Yeah, right. Just robbed you 16 years of your life. But don't worry, it's okay. It's going to be
Yeah,
fine.
it's okay.
So by his own sworn testimony, Stephen Soren heard it all, nevertheless, at this deposition in 2010. So what was that? Was that part of your
Lawsuit.
appeals?
No,
in the
no, there's a
lawsuit.
lawsuit. Depositions now. And now
Okay.
suddenly he goes from vouching for everything as told by the Peekskill Police Department. He goes from that, vouching on the criminal side of it,
Yeah.
to now in the lawsuit in an effort to try to push this thing the hell away from me,
Right.
get the blame away from me. He disavows all knowledge. To hear him tell it as soon as he left the room and the good cop came in, he went to some other part of the building and he didn't hear anything and he never knew
knew nothing.
for several weeks later he didn't know that I had confessed that I had been arrested.
Nothing. He knew nothing.
He knew nothing at this point.
Right.
Because legally,
He's like,
and this was
what
one
is
of the
it,
claims.
from, Hogan's Heroes.
Yeah.
I know nothing.
But because legally, and you're going to come to, because legally, when he heard the threat and the false promise, he was obligated to then step in and protect me, and he did not.
And he didn't.
It says here, Stevens not only denied listening to McIntyre's interrogation of Jeff, he even claimed not to know that Jeff confessed in his office.
Yeah, and who's going to believe
Can
that?
you imagine the
Who
absurdity?
could believe that?
Can you imagine? So, but what I don't understand is, how does he get away with saying that if there was proof that you did?
Well, there isn't. There's my testimony saying it, and there's his testimony denying
Yeah,
it,
there
and
is
there's
no
there
proof,
is no
Tommy. There's no
independent anything.
videotape.
There's not even a signed confession either. It's just their word.
Okay.
So their word that you confessed to it.
Yes, that's
So
it.
when was there a signed confession?
Never.
On March 2, 1990, 5 weeks after Jeff's false confession, the FBI informed the police that DNA testing proved the semen found in the victim did not come from Jeff.
Obviously.
That's right.
Okay.
How do you
Here
go
we
from
go.
there?
Well, that's
They
the
just
that's
wanted
the
to get
$64
him.
million
But
even
question.
there,
So,
even if they did.
Well, the way that they did is that the prosecutor got the medical examiner to commit fraud and suddenly
Yes.
claim that he remembered 6 months after doing the autopsy, hundreds of autopsies later, he remembers that there's medical evidence showing that the victim was sexually active. So it opened the door for the prosecutor
to
to
say it
argue
could've-
consensual sex that she had before I raped and murdered her. Where
But
they
there
went.
would still have to be his DNA.
It would. It would have been that under that theory. That would have meant there would have been at least two-person semen, but
exactly.
there wasn't.
There wasn't.
I guess these guys got
Christ.
together and they're like, "Oh, fucking FBI fucked up our thing here, right?"
How the hell?
Those
well,
motherfuckers!
it's-
How
it's-
dare the
it's-
FBI
it's-
do
yeah,
investigation?
how are we going to save this case? How are we going to save the case?
Right.
Suddenly now, and this is how I really got Stevens in the lawsuit. Suddenly, he claims that he quoted me as saying, "I don't know if the perpetrator ejaculated." And that's how I nailed him, because that statement did not, on his police reports, it wasn't in his early reports. He only came up with that after
the fact.
the DNA. After the DNA result came in, then
Okay.
suddenly he started saying that.
Okay.
Nearly 2 months after the confession, Stevens gave Bolin 2 pages of typewritten notes purporting to contain statements made by Jeff during the exam regarding his theories of the crime. So these notes are just totally fabricated horseshit, right? Is this correct?
Well, I think he actually made the notes, but he did say he.
No,
They
but
were
they
written in
were
order.
fabricated after the fact. That's what I'm saying. Supposedly,
Yes,
that's
yes,
the word
correct.
they used.
Yes, correct.
New admissions allegedly made
correct.
by Jeff, which
Yes.
were not made by Jeff
Right.
in those
correct,
days.
Correct.
Okay, made by Jeff during the January 25, 1990 interrogation, which were not, he's just making shit up as he goes along.
Correct.
Which no one had ever before mentioned or recorded.
Thank you.
Okay, the notes included the statement, "I don't know if the perpetrator ejaculated." So they're actually attributing that line to you.
Yes.
Okay, and then the complaints go on to say, which was not recorded in any other previously provided police report, including McIntyre's detailed police report regarding Jeff's confession.
Correct.
Okay. In truth, the narrative defendants recount does not even accurately report Stevens' testimony about what Jeff allegedly told him. Evidence to explain away the DNA suggesting to the jury that the victim had sex with a consensual partner who ejaculated and was then raped and murdered by Jeff, who did not ejaculate. Jeff did not make the statement or even confirm it in response to a leading question. Moreover, Jeff, who was a virgin, did not know it was possible to have intercourse without ejaculating and did not ever use the word ejaculate.
Correct.
Did you know about ejaculating back in those
No.
days as a 16-year-old
No.
child? No.
No.
Okay.
No.
What, you were indeed a virgin?
Yeah.
Okay. Did you get
Not
rid
to
of
be
that
ashamed
virginity?
of, right?
Stevens played an extremely important role in ultimately persuading the jury of the defendant's guilt in light of the seemingly insurmountable, quote-unquote, forensic evidence.
Did they give you Miranda rights?
Well, they did in the. Well, when I went to the police station, when I got in the car, the cop read me my rights then, but they didn't after that. And I
Okay.
want to add that I didn't understand my Miranda rights because they kept me off balance by Jeff as the junior helper,
Right,
detective
exactly.
helper, and plus I was 16 years old.
course,
And every
you
time
don't
they
even
kept,
know.
and every time they kept getting to the part where it will be used against you in a court of law, my mind went to like what I saw on TV, like civil court. And I'm thinking, court? What are you talking about? What court? We're not going to court.
Thanks to the video of the Central Park Five, I think was instrumental in passing a law and mandating that every interrogation has to be recorded now. Is this correct?
Only in certain cases, second-degree murder and a variety of sex offense cases, it's not required.
But in case of murder and rape, they have to
If
videotape.
it's a first-degree, not in second-degree murder, no. There's certain
Oh, I
lot
see.
of crimes that
Interesting.
is exempted from that. That's why that
Wow,
law is not
okay.
adequate.
And that's only in New York State? It's
Yes.
not a federal law?
It's not.
Not a federal law, okay. Number one, I get the sense that in many cases when they do record them, they only record just the last hour. Is this a ploy, you think, that interrogators use so they don't actually fuck up their case? Because
Yes.
if they recorded the whole thing, there might be something in the first hour, 2 hours, so you think this is the case?
No doubt.
Number two, do you think that there are instances when they record the whole thing but erase what is not favorable to them?
Yeah,
Yes.
sure.
And have there been situations that have happened?
I can't recall a specific case, but I'm saying the law of averages and common sense, I think that that has happened.
Okay. And Jason Flom said it, I'll repeat it again, on his podcast, Wrongful Conviction. When you get called in, give them your name, your address, and I want to speak to a lawyer.
Correct.
Period. Shut your mouth.
That's right.
So if anybody's listening,
I
name,
agree.
address, get my lawyer down here.
Say nothing.
So
That's right.
you go to prison, they take you away. I'm just looking at it from my perspective, walking in there. Just fucking surreal. I
Yes.
mean, you think you're in, like, how did this happen? What's going on, right?
All those things.
Shock, fear,
Yes.
all that stuff.
Yes.
Was there a level of comfort thinking, all right, they made a mistake, this is absurd, but at some point, the next week, a month, 3 months, we're going to figure this thing out. I'm going to be
Yes,
out.
yes.
So that gave you some sense of comfort going in.
Yeah.
Right.
I don't
As
know
the
if comfort is
Well,
the
that's
right
right.
word.
Well, I
Sense of
lived from
comfort.
appeal to appeal mentally. So, my first 10 years, I thought, well, I'm going to be out like in 6 months. We're going to have the next appeal. They're going to sort this shit out, and they're going to.
So was that the sense of hope that you kept hanging
Yes,
on?
yes.
Every 6 months there was a sense of hope that
Hope
the
I
next
like.
6 months are
Sense
going to
of hope.
You need a sense of
Yeah.
hope to hang
No,
on.
no, I agree.
Because Jeff, you said to me that there were a couple of in the beginning suicide attempts.
Yes, I did.
I think you actually picked a very genius way, because I would imagine the easiest way is take a sheet, wrap it around your neck, and hang yourself. In your case, you tried to, with your teeth,
Yeah.
gnaw at your veins instead. You had
Yes.
nothing to slice it
Right,
off.
correct.
And you tried that, what, 2 or 3
I
times?
tried that once. I tried to hang myself with the blanket.
I didn't know nothing about that.
This is the first time you're hearing about this? So you never told your mom, obviously, because it's a
It's not
terrible.
something you want to tell your mom.
No, well, look, listen.
But
But
you
under the
gotta
circumstances, though,
understand,
as a
this is-
child, he does need to speak to somebody. There has to be a level of expression, on some level, where you have to let it out. You gonna make me cry now?
No, not at all. Keep
How
going.
dare you?
I am. That's why I'm wearing the
I'm
glasses.
starting to cry too. 5 people at the table tearing up. You prick, Stevens. You're making us cry. Anyway, what point was it, a year, 2 years into it, where you started sort of feeling your way around and sort of, on some level, getting used to prison life? In other words, when did the Muslim thing come in?
Maybe 6 months after I was there, I
You joined the-
became
you-
Muslim.
you became a Muslim.
Yeah,
Okay.
but that didn't. But that's different process than getting used to prison. That may be like 7 years in, 8 years in.
Prison is a brutal place to be.
Sure.
Much more for you than
Yes.
for others, because
Correct.
you were a white kid, idyllic childhood. You
Don't
came
forget
from
the,
love
don't
and
forget the
nurture.
sex offense aspect to it.
Okay, I'm getting to that. The biggest fear in prison is who's going to kick my ass, and in your case, you got convicted for rape.
Yes.
Who's going to do unspeakable
Rape
things to
and
me?
murder of a
Would you
kid.
shut the fuck up
No,
1
I'm
second,
just saying.
please? You let me get to this.
I know
one.
where you're going.
I
Go.
know you know. You're a very smart guy. All right, let me finish.
Go.
I've heard of a lot of stories about rapists having unspeakable things happen to them, and we never got this far.
Right.
This is the one area. I'm going to put it to you point blank. You said in the beginning that you specifically, you wouldn't say that you were in there for rape,
Right.
just murder, so you get
Correct.
some street cred.
Yes,
Right?
yes,
So now you're like
it's
a
true.
badass, but you
It's
didn't
true.
say the rape part
No,
because
of course
obviously
not.
you
I
feared.
can't say that.
Right,
Forget about
because
street
people are
cred.
gonna come
Now I'm
into
on the
your-
bottom of the barrel. Now I'm a target for anybody.
Right. So the question to you is, did you have any unspeakable situations that happened to you in prison?
No, no,
No.
I was never violated sexually, but I was, however, beat up any number of times, and one time I
But
almost
never
got killed.
any kind of
No,
nothing. All right.
no. Well, with the exception that there was a prison guard who was kind of an equal opportunity quasi-molester.
You told me he grabbed
and
you?
his routine, his job was when people walked through the metal detector,
Right.
if you rang, he would
Right.
do a pat frisk. And the other thing is if you didn't ring, but you had a suspicious look, then he would pat frisk you. And the routine was supposed to be you're allowed to take everything out of your pockets when they do the pat frisk. If they feel anything, they can presume it's a weapon. Okay?
Oh.
But this guy had his own method worked out. He wouldn't allow you to take anything out of the pockets because he wanted to go in himself with his hand. He had his whole routine, and he'd grab everything, and then he wouldn't come out with everything in your pocket because he wanted to go in 3 more times with this hand alone, and then he'd come in around get the other part.
What a treat. Okay.
I
so
was attacked in the prison.
when were you in prison?
When I went to visit Jeffrey, this
When you
black guy
went to
attacked
when you-
me. Yeah,
Did
I
you
was
know
on the
this?
floor, and the guard didn't help me.
They wouldn't do anything.
And then
to
I
help
told
you.
him, "Don't you send my son down here. I don't want this
What
guy."
kind of an attack did the prison guard, what was it? What kind of a...
He was sitting up at the desk.
He threw you or he pushed you? or
No,
shoved
he
you?
grabbed me. He grabbed my hair and he pulled me down on the ground.
Did you know about this, Jeff?
Oh, my
So tell
God.
me- yeah, but
Yes.
the prisoner did that, not a guard.
I didn't say the guard did it.
Oh, prisoner. I thought it was a guard.
No,
no,
they
a
thought that.
prisoner.
Wow, that's terrible. And I'm sorry you had to go through that.
I had to stop them from bringing him out because I didn't want this guy to know what he looked like.
Right.
I was afraid.
Oh, that's what...
That was a pretty
smart
shrewd
idea.
move, by the way. That was
Yeah,
a pretty
that's
shrewd
Very
move.
smart
smart.
idea.
Very smart.
But
on
I
your
got
part. Very
I
smart.
kicked him and I did what I had to do.
Okay, you didn't really tell your mom anything really about prison life because you were
Right.
trying to shield her from everything, right?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
But he called me. We always talked on the phone. Every time you had a chance to call home, you
No, I
did.
know, but that's a different point,
But
though.
I know you didn't tell me what was going on there.
No.
I didn't know nothing
So-
about you trying to commit suicide.
Okay, so he's in prison and you're home doing whatever you're doing. You have to go to work. You have to make a living. Was there ever a thought in your mind where you said, could I have done something different? In other words, did you lay any blame on yourself
No.
on any level? No.
No.
I assume that it must have been tough on you, that you felt a very strong sense of helplessness.
Well, yes. I mean, I did a lot of praying, and I talked to my parish priest, and he went up there to see Jeffrey
How often did you go to see Jeff?
3 times a week.
3
in the
times a
begun-
week.
In the beginning.
In the beginning, and then eventually tapered off.
To 2 times a week.
Right.
And then after that, I could only go one day, Saturday, to him or his brother, because his brother had to go to a private school because of what happened to
How
him.
far away were you from the prison, from your home?
Well, it took me about
About 4 hours?
4 hours to get
so
up
that's
there.
quite a trek.
And then come back, and then go back home and come back up again another time.
At some point, you were getting frustrated with your mom because you would ask her to file things.
I would ask her to make a phone call and
Whatever
look information up. I don't want to say file. That's
no,
more
but
like lawyer-like.
help on your behalf.
Yeah, correct.
You know, to help you get out
Yes.
of prison.
Yes, true.
And you were frustrated with her because, you know, she'd come to visit you, and you say, "Mom, did you do that?" And she goes, "Oh, I didn't get around to it yet."
Yes.
Linda, do you ever get a sense of that?
Well, I remember him telling me to do different things, but I had a lot to do.
Right.
And I did
Right.
type up the letters that he wanted me to do, and I mailed them out.
Right.
I did a lot of Xeroxing. I did all this on my job.
Right.
On my lunchtime. That's
Right,
and
right.
that's how
And
it got
again,
done.
there is no right or wrong. I kind of see your mom's perspective on the level, though I certainly understand. Mom, I'm in prison. What the fuck is the delay? I understand that. Now, I've had conversations with Selwyn about this, and he said to me with his mom, similar issue. Selwyn says, look, my mom had a life. And he understood that she can't do stuff, and there's a lot of stuff that she just doesn't know. So when he would ask you to do things, were you just sort of clueless about doing certain things, or were you very specific about asking her?
I was very specific. That having been said, a lot of it was beyond her comprehension level.
On some level, you being in prison, it did create some animosity.
Yeah, it's created issues.
Right,
sure.
because at some point you said, why isn't my mom doing this in a timely manner?
Sure.
Did you have any kind of knowledge of how he felt, that he...
I know he was upset, and I told him I'm working on it, Jeffrey. I had to look into things.
Sure, okay. Selwyn says, your mom had a life, and he kind of defends you. I don't know if you met Selwyn, he's another exoneree.
No.
Defends your mom, saying she had a life, and there's only so much they can do. She has to live her life. And he went through it with his mom, he claims, as well.
Don't
your
forget,
mom on
I
some
had
level,
a sick mother, too.
and a sick mother. On the other hand, I do understand that if I was in Jeff's position,
You want it done. I
And,
understand
and if I say to my mom or whoever it is, you know, did you get that done? When I gave you a certain time frame and it wasn't done, I would say, what the fuck? I'm in prison. You're the only person that can do it. So it's like, why didn't you do it?
It
So
could be because
I
she
understand that-
believes it might be a lost cause.
No,
Is
I
that the
didn't. bel-
case?
No, not at all. I knew he was going to get out. My mother, his grandmother, predicted, I'm going to die, and when I die, Jeffrey's going to get out after that. And
Jeff,
that's
your
the
thoughts?
truth.
Yeah, it's true. Grandma said that.
Nancy, do you feel a responsibility to try to teach Jeff the things any parent would as if he's a 16-year-old child at times?
But I have a son. My son is 31.
Right.
So, you know, I raised my son by myself. I was
Right.
a single mother.
Yeah.
It's not easy. It's kind of hard.
Right.
But, like, we talk about everything about his life, and it's very sad.
Yeah.
So he,
Jeff's life?
Yes.
Okay.
It's
Yeah.
very sad what he went through. So I feel sometimes I have to teach him, Jeffrey, you got to behave like that.
Yeah.
Jeffrey, you got to dress like this.
Right.
Jeffrey, you got to sit and eat this way.
Right.
Jeffrey, you got to look nice.
Right.
Especially when it comes sometimes to say, he can't have no friends. He don't meet no girls. And I sit and I think, and I see my son and I think by myself. I don't say to him, I don't say that to my son. If that happens, it's because he was inside.
That's a very nurturing thing to do, I think. I mean,
It is.
on
It
some
is,
level,
of
though,
course.
because you're still in the 20-year-old mindset, I would imagine that maybe in your sense, you'd be, oh, Mom, leave me alone, because she's kind of like a nagging mom, or do you sort of admire and respect the fact that she tries to sort of guide you and direct you in the right
latter.
direction? When you got out of prison,
Yeah.
you stayed with your mom for 3 days,
Yes.
and then you left.
Yes.
By default, you would think that, you know, you got no place to go. You can stay with your mom till you get back on your feet. Why'd you leave 3 days later?
Because Cobleskill, there was kind of a one-horse town, and there's no way to rebuild my life up there.
Did you fear any sense of fear, any retribution from any prosecution team or anything like that? Because Selwyn,
No.
You told me you had a little bit of a tension between you and your mom when you got out. And
yes.
what did that tension entail?
Around the issue you already talked about.
We already raised, right?
Plus, the other thing, too, was that she wanted me to live with her.
Right.
And I determined that there was no way to really rebuild my life up there. It wasn't very many opportunities.
Right.
If anyone was going to connect with me and give me a shot, it was going to be in the county I came from, not someplace I have no tie to.
Right.
So that was another issue of contention.
And how did you feel about him leaving?
Very
you must
upset.
have been wrecked.
Yes, I was
Yeah.
very upset.
Right. You were
Wasn't
homeless
easy
for a while.
me.
Well, I very nearly became homeless.
Where did you go when you left 3 days after?
Yes, somebody in Peekskill. There was a woman whose child I used to play with. So I stayed there for 2 weeks. And then I went to Indiana to stay with Martin. And then when I came back, I just, there was the Muslim community put me up in an apartment. And from there, when I lost that, Mercy College gave me the scholarship, which wound up including the dorm. Well, I lost my housing, and
Gotcha.
they rather than become homeless, they let me stay at the
let-
dorm. And then from there, Human Development Services of Westchester, I fit the mental health diagnosis of clients that they serve. They'd rent an apartment, you give them 30% of whatever you get in the course of a month, and so I lived there.
How long did you stay in Indiana for?
Oh, that was maybe like a week.
And you must have felt like you're a fish out of water there.
I did, but I was
Right.
making a lot of phone calls back to New York trying to find a place where I was going to stay when I came back.
Sure, right,
And so
okay.
after 2 years of that, I wound up meeting Nancy.
It's fair to say that the relationship between when you got out of prison, you had a strained relationship with you and your mom.
True.
Right, and that must have upset you quite a bit because
Yes, it
obviously
did.
your son wants to come out. You've been missing him for 16 years, and you're like, why did he come out? Now we have a strained relationship. And then Nancy came into the picture, and Nancy, I get the sense, is on some level, maybe more, is a mom.
In a way,
You
a
know.
combination best friend and second mom, sure.
Yeah, but on some level, she, even now we can say, she picks up a lot of the slack where Linda doesn't. And I'm assuming only because you have a strained relationship and you guys live together, right?
Well, I have a two-family house. She lives upstairs. I live downstairs,
Right,
two
right.
different floors. But she's on my floor all the time.
How do you feel about the relationship between Jeff and Nancy?
Well, I'm very happy that Nancy came into my son's life.
Right,
She's
because
a
you
wonderful
know he's in
person.
good hands.
Yes.
Yeah.
She does a lot of good things for him, and she's always thinking of, always thinking about him all the time.
Do you ever think sometimes that I wish, I'm assuming that they have a certain closeness that maybe you and Mom don't really have? Do you ever feel like that you had a similar closeness to what Jeff and Nancy have?
Well, I feel sometimes my son doesn't care about me. That's what I feel. I miss him. I love my son. I just feel I'm so sorry this had to happen to my son. You don't know what it feels
It's
like
okay.
because I feel I lost my son.
It's okay. I don't think you lost your son. I think your son is still by you.
Sure.
He loves you,
I,
Linda,
I,
very
I,
much.
and I know for a fact that your son loves you quite a bit.
Yeah, of course I do. Well,
Yeah.
she's visiting me. She didn't just come down here to come to the city to do the thing and
Excuse
then
me,
go
Jeffrey,
back
one
home.
minute.
We're visiting.
Excuse me, Jeffrey, I just want to say one thing. I said, no matter who's going to be in Jeffrey's life, she's always going to be the mother.
Yeah,
She always
yeah.
going to be number one in his life.
Right.
And nobody in this
Right.
whole world is going to love Jeffrey the way she does.
It's okay. It's okay.
Right, Linda? I always tell you that nobody in this world will love him that much like the mother.
I'll be honest with you, Linda. I had conversations with Jeff, and he told me these things, and not having met you, I didn't know. And sometimes you come up with a preconceived idea, a notion of what somebody is. But now that I've met you, and I see the nuances, and I look in your eyes, I get the sense that your mom really loves you
Sure,
and really
of course.
cares.
I'm sorry. I just can't help it.
I see
Don't feel
what's
sorry,
going on
Linda.
here.
You
Okay.
just say what you feel in your heart.
I'm
Good
looking at
mom.
Jeffrey.
Looks good.
Yeah.
As his mom's in tears,
Yeah.
and there's no emotion there.
Yeah, I know that. I see that.
So
I
I'm
see
just
that.
wondering, life goes on, right? You're out. Life goes on. This is your mom.
Yes.
There are times you gotta let shit go.
Of course.
You gotta mend. Doesn't matter what happened in the past. Let it go. It is your mom.
In Jeffrey's defense, you keep on saying, first of all, you're lecturing the guy, number one.
I'm not
Well,
lecturing.
it sounds a little lecturish.
It's not
No,
lecturing.
but
it's
let me
just
finish.
Advice.
You can't even imagine what's going through his mind. So I understand from his perspective, why he might have the stoned, stone
hear ya.
face, vacant look on his face. In other words, there is no right or wrong. The reason why I wanted everybody to come here is because I thought it was important to actually deal with the nuances of the dynamics, his story, the relationships, all that stuff. I think it's very important. And I think on some level, it's very healing. And Selwyn said this as well. I think it's healthy for you to actually have a more constructive relationship with your mom, and I'm sure Nancy would agree,
I'm very
where
happy
there
when she
is
comes.
more expression, there's more talk. And I think, would you like to see that on some level? To talk more with your son?
Yes.
You certainly must understand on some level what he went through, and you must understand rationally why he feels the way he feels, that he might have felt a little bit left back by you, that you didn't do everything that you should have done. Did you ever have this conversation where she said to you that she understands how you would feel?
No.
No. So this is the first time you're hearing this.
Have you two ever sat down and spoke?
About.
Heart to heart.
Just talk.
Yeah, we've had. We've
Did you ever,
we-
whatever he thinks you did wrong, and I'm sure there's something there, have you ever apologized, or have you ever accepted an apology?
Did that ever happen?
Well, I should say a couple of times when I went down to Nancy's house. Jeffrey was there, and we were talking in the bedroom, and we were both crying. And he told me he loved me, and I told him I loved him. And I'm sorry that this all had happened to him.
Sure.
I really am.
I understand. And it must have been a tremendous burden for you. I don't take away the burden of you being a mom and knowing that your son is in prison, wrongfully convicted for
Yes.
16 years, and to live with that and carry that on your shoulders must be a tremendous thing. Do you ever try to encourage more talk between them, between the two of them?
Right, Linda?
Yes,
Always.
you do. She-
I call her, I said, Linda, come over, stay over here with us, come and live with us.
Mm-hmm.
I think it would be nice for you to live over here in the house, because Jeffrey said, we have a house, Mama could live with you upstairs if she want privacy.
Right.
And I always call Linda, when you going to come? Linda, come for Christmas, for holidays, because I want to get along together
Family,
good.
right.
And I always tell him, that's his mom, no matter what. That's your son.
Linda, any parting thoughts?
Well, I wish my son the best. I'm very proud of him. He has accomplished a great deal, and I was happy that I was able to contribute to your education. And I love you so much. I do.
I notice when she says, I love you, you don't return it.
No, I mean, it's, you're
Is it
doing
because the cameras are running?
Yeah, it's because the cameras. Because the cameras are running.
Okay.
I mean,
All right. Well, he loves you.
Yeah, of course I do. Yeah, of course
you
I
love your
do.
mother.
Of course
That's
I
your
do.
mother, right?
Yeah.
What do you want to say about your exoneration?
Look, I lost 7 appeals. I got turned down for parole. I did 16 years, not out of the 15 life sentence. I was exonerated through further DNA testing through the data bank, which matched the actual perpetrator, who subsequently confessed, not just to the cops, but also to a reporter on video camera. Okay, so all charges against me were dismissed on actual innocence grounds. He was charged and he pled guilty and was sentenced. What happened with me, has shaped the rest of my life because, I'm an advocate now. I have a nonprofit, the Jeffrey Deskovic Foundation for Justice, which we exonerate wrongfully convicted people. We've got 7 people out in 5.5 years.
Good for you.
And that's the reason why I'm in law school, is I want to exonerate more people, but just as a lawyer. That's the dream that I'm pursuing.
All I ask of you is for you to prove these words are true. You better learn to show consideration. All I ask of you is to listen to my point of view. You better learn to show consideration. You should have learned to show consideration.